All right, so you have completed your study of our final pollutant, oil, and I want you to check your work carefully now. So we remember that um, in the gray area, we wondered right away if there could have been an oil spill. We saw this tanker headed to the refinery, and lo and behold, with breaking news, there is oil washing up on the shores by Synchrony City. And so, right here is where the oil is found. So you can see it's where really all the waterways are meeting. And so you met this suspect, Mandy Life Bodes, and remember, she's the captain of the oil tanker, and she did not seem happy to be accused of being a suspect. And so again, here's the oil refinery and here's her tanker. So when you listen to the board meeting, Juan Tunio mentioned this technique called a gas chromatograph, and it's basically able to chemically distinguish one chemical from another. So refinery tanker and car oil are not chemically identical. And so those are the three possible sources of oil pollutants. And honestly, it wouldn't have been crazy if they would have found samples of all three of those washed up on the shores of near Synchrony City, but it was definitely car oil. And I know it might have been kind of tough to see these graphs as the play was going on, but here I think you can clearly see the chemistry match compared to the refinery and the tanker oil. Then the next thing that happened that was breaking news is that there were the autopsy results that were in. And so please check your work here. They actually examined 50 fish. And you might think, well, is that enough to get a sampling? There were like 5,000 that died, and that is a decent sample size. But did you notice that they did not test just one species? So your answer to number 2 is no there. And the reasoning for that, science-wise, if they would have all been, say, salmon or they'd all been trout, then you could maybe think, well, it could have been a disease that was very specific to that species. So it was important to get a good sampling. Oil deaths were 14 of them, 14 of the 50. Insufficient oxygen, which means not enough oxygen, was 21 of the deaths, our biggest culprit. But we didn't have a pollutant called insufficient oxygen. So we had to think about, all right, well, what things did we study that would have led to a waterway with not enough oxygen? The first one was sediment. That was pollutant number 3. Remember the idea that sediment makes the water darker, and darker water heats up more. And as the water heats up, the molecules of water expand, and then they release the oxygen gas out to the atmosphere. And the other thing that would result in not enough oxygen is the algal bloom we believe to be going on in James Pond due to too many nutrients called phosphates building up. Then remember, the bacteria start to decompose the dead algae at the bottom and consume or use up the oxygen. We did have confirmed chlorine deaths. There were 8 chlorine deaths, and then this mysterious 7 unknown deaths. But if you check out this map with me, the only thing that's really left that's going on in the gray area is this acidic waterway over here. So the acid rain must be the 7 unknown deaths, and that was our answer to number 9. Now, you know that tomorrow you have to figure out really who is responsible for the dying fish. 4 of the 9 suspects are going to be yeses tomorrow. But what I wanted you to just think through today is, who do we suspect for each pollutant? And so for chlorine, there was only one, Cannonball with the water slide. Then for acid rain, remember, the whole gray area is having acid rain, but over here, that granite does not neutralize the acidity, and you end up with an acidic waterway. Well, there were 3 possible suspects for acid rain. Don Juan Tunio's oil refinery could be putting pollutants in the air that make the rain acidic. Avery One's car exhaust, she was a suspect for acid rain because of that. And the Toya factory's toy factory also makes air pollutants that can combine with water and make an acidic rain. Now, our next thing that we were investigating was sediment. And do you remember how the Mr. Sippies were so dirty with sediment that you watched me pinch on black? And so there were 3 suspects for this one. And of course, as I go through this, check your X's if you need to. We suspected Don Juan Tunio because he owns the logging operation. Remember, anything with plant removal is a problem with soil erosion and getting sediment into the waterways in high amounts. Anton, a log, because he works for Don Juan Tunio, remember, a ton of logs at the logging operation. And then El Mosquito, you watched that video about the predators being reintroduced to Yellowstone. Well, El Mosquito has been hunting mountain lions. And so we wonder if that's resulting in overgrazing in Parallel Park. And as a result, higher soil erosion. Now, the phosphate buildup was happening here. This is where we feel convinced there's an algal bloom, and there's a lot going on around James Pond. Remember, the golf course fertilizer has phosphate, laundry detergent can have phosphate, cow manure can have phosphate. So we actually have 4 suspects here that we wonder if they did the phosphate and are guilty of the algal bloom. Don Juan Tunio, who owns the cattle ranch. Avery One would be doing laundry in the town. Bovine, she works for Don Juan Tunio. Remember, bovine is like another way to say a cow. And Sandy trapped with her golf course. And then finally, the oil that we wonder about. Oil's washing up here at Synchrony City, and we have 3 oil suspects. Here they are: Don Juan Tunio with his refinery, Avery One with her car oil, and Mandy Life Bodies with her oil from the oil tanker. Those are the people we suspect. Now, obviously, not all of these people are guilty for everything. 5 are going to be completely innocent. 4 tomorrow will be guilty.